One of the capabilities that Oracle provides is the ability to mark an index invisible. What this means is that the index will exist, but the Oracle Optimizer will not use the index in the execution of any SQL statements, unless you set a session parameter to tell the Optimizer to consider invisible indexes. This is a parameter that you would set manually, and it is on a per session basis. So in general, the index would not be available for use by any of the SQL statements in your applications, just in a session where you specifically set the parameter. The index will be maintained by Oracle, so for any DML statements that are executed against the table, Oracle will keep this index in sync, and consequently, you still have the overhead of maintaining the index. A logical question to ask is, why would we want to do such a thing? Well, there are a couple of scenarios where making an index invisible can make sense. The first situation is that we have a new index, but before we make it generally available, we want to do some additional testing ourselves, and we don't want to impact the execution plans that anyone else is getting or how their statements are running at this point. So what you can do is create the new index as invisible. Then you can log into Oracle, set the session parameter to allow your session to use invisible indexes, and test the index out while not impacting anyone else. The second scenario that you might have is that if you have an index that is seldom used and you want to drop the index, but you have a little bit of doubt as to if this index is being used anywhere. If it turns out that the index is being used and you have a process that starts performing poorly, then you want to be able to quickly turn the index back on. So what can be done in this situation is to mark the index as invisible. Then, after you're satisfied that the index was not being used, you can drop it. Or if need be, you can immediately turn the index back on, and you don't have to go through the process of rebuilding the index. So effectively what you're doing is a soft drop of the index. So let's look at some of the syntax around invisible indexes. If we want to create an index and have it be invisible, all we have to do is include the invisible keyword in the create index statement, like we see here. If we have an existing index that is currently visible and we want to make invisible, we perform an alter index and include the invisible keyword. To make an index that is currently invisible visible again, we use an alter index statement, but this time the keyword is visible. As you are working with invisible indexes, you may need to check and see what indexes are visible and which are not. To do so, there's a column named Visibility in the All Indexes view of the Oracle Data Dictionary, so you can look at this column to determine the current status of the index. Finally, if we are logged into Oracle and we want to make it to where our current session can use invisible indexes, then we need to run an alter session command and set the parameter Optimizer use invisible indexes to true. If we no longer want our session to use invisible indexes, we set this parameter to false. So let's move into a demo and take a look at invisible indexes in action.